What is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for you rascals and rapscallions out there. As always, I hope everybody's having a great weekend, watching some spooky movies and whatnot. And in this video, I am coming to you guys from the past. I've recorded this a day prior. It is a Saturday about noon while I'm recording this video. I'm currently waiting for the Mighty Bojack to pick me up. We're going to head up to West Branch, Michigan for Super Shogun Wrestling. Hopefully, people watching this video today were there yesterday and enjoyed the show. It is the Samurai series, kind of like an 8-man elimination tag match. 2 of them on the card, a throwback to the Survivor series. I am in one of those 8-man elimination tag matches, but it's going to be very interesting. Because if you guys remember 6 months ago when I was talking about my foot kind of hurting, like a compression issue in my heel, I have re-irritated that somehow. So it's been less than 48 hours that my foot's been hurting again. And I can barely walk on it. I've tried most everything, but I'm still going to go to the show. I'm going to bring my gear. I like riding up to the shows. I like seeing all the boys. You know, it's a good time. So we will see. I'm going to talk about it a little more later on today on Sunday in a stream I'm going to do once I get up and moving. But enough about talking about me walking around like a zombie. Let's talk about some zombies. Because as you can tell from the title, we're going to talk about Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And as a lot of you guys know, Return of the Living Dead Part 1 is my all-time favorite movie. Any genre. Favorite horror movie, favorite movie in general. And, you know, I got to thinking about making a video about this one for a while because this movie seems to get a lot of hate. Like, you love or hate it. Obviously, that's how things go. But there is a big divide in a lot of people that seem to just hate this and think it's too comedic. Which I just want to talk about my feelings with this movie and everything. So, yeah, I'm just going to ramble on and defend Return of the Living Dead Part 2. For one, I got to say right off the bat, I think I have a connection with this movie since I was very young. You know, I've been watching it ever since I was a little kid. I've probably seen this just as many times as the original. And it is just a lot of fun. It's a very funny movie. And I think that's the biggest critique that this movie gets, is that it's too funny. It's too much of a comedy, which I don't quite understand, because Return of the Living Dead Part 1 is also very funny, and it's a comedy. Clearly doesn't go as far, but, I mean, like, a couple examples I can give right off the bat, you know, talking about the humor. Like, for one, I can understand if you don't like this movie. I'm going to try to convince you why it rules, though. Like, certain comedy and horror movies, I don't care for if it goes too stupid. Like, a lot of people would think I'm a fan of, like, Adult Swim and comedy like that, like Family Guy. I don't like that stuff, just mindless comedy. I like a little more substance with it. So, like the movie, like, say, Microwave Massacre, which, though it's impressive that came out in, what, like 79, I think it's just too stupid. And some trauma movies are just too out there. So, like, I do have a limit myself. But when it comes to Return of the Living Dead Part 2, I think it's just a really fun comedy horror movie in general. And it doesn't claim to be anything else, you know. And you could argue that there's more suspense in Part 1, but there's a lot of suspenseful moments in Part 2 as well. And, you know, maybe I think running this so much as a little kid, something that always drew me in was that the lead character in a lot of ways, Jesse, is a little kid. And maybe I just related to him fighting against the bully the whole time in the movie. But I think is a very fun way of doing things. You got to admit that it's pretty fun in any movie of any genre that has main characters that are kids, main characters that are adults. And in this movie, we get main characters that are kids, teenagers, and adults, and elderly, really, with, what's his name, Doc Mandel, I believe it was. So I find movies like that interesting, where you can relate to it as the younger person, as a kid, and then as you become an adult, you relate to the adults and everything. And another thing I know people really gripe on is bringing back Tom Matthews and James Karen playing completely different characters. But I don't understand that, because they're the 2 best characters in Part 1. And if you love them like I do, why don't you want to see them do the same stupid shit in the second movie? Be even more funny, hamming it up even more. You know they had to have had a blast on the set doing that. And I understand, like, oh, there's no continuity, it doesn't make sense and everything. But, like, you got to think about it. I find myself doing this all the damn time. I'll be sitting there watching a movie and say, well, that didn't make sense. Why didn't they run down the hall and go that way? And then I remember, oh, I'm watching Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Like, the whole movie doesn't make sense. It's a zombie movie. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be fun. And speaking of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I didn't even mean to do that, but Suzanne Snyder, who's in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, plays Tom Matthews' girlfriend, and she does a great job playing like this 80s hair metal like kind of looking girl, and I love their dynamic. I love the three of them in the cemetery and everything, especially when they end up turning. And obviously I'm going to be giving spoilers in this video. I'm just ranting on. I'm sure everybody's seen this movie. The way James Cairn starts hamming it up at the end, he's falling down the cemetery. No, leave me. I deserve to die. And Tom Matthews' girlfriend, Brenda, Suzanne Snyder, just completely hates his guts and everything. Like when she leaves him later on outside the car when he turns. I just love all three of them. And that goes for everybody in this movie. All the characters are really good. So you got Tom Matthews, James Cairn, Suzanne Snyder, that trio right there. You got the little kid Jesse and the two bullies. The one that isn't in there as much, and then the main bully, his name slips my mind. I've seen these movies a million times, so I'm not as good as like remembering actors' names as a lot of other people on YouTube, but their dynamic with the kid and the bully, that's really good. And then I even like the teenagers. They might be the weakest part of the movie, Lucy, but she's a pretty fun character that kind of comes into her own, knowing like, you know, she's the older sister babysitting Jesse, and she knows like how to shoot guns at the gun range, so she comes in handy. And then you got the dorky lead guy, what was his name? I think his name was Tom. And I admit he's not the best either, but there's charm to both of them. He's trying to go after the girl and everything. She don't like him, but she ends up liking him at the end. You know, so everybody in the cast, the small cast, they're all good. So I don't really understand the gripe there. Like, I do and I don't. I just think people need to have more fun with this movie. And I grew up in an apartment complex that had a subdivision being built across the street. And maybe that's another part of it, because it's like a new home development or whatever they call it. We used to go over there and play in the subdivision before it was built all the time. And once again, you know, as an adult, I can only imagine, because I've worked construction before, I'd be pissed off, us little kids in there fucking around with everything, you know. But, you know, I love the idea that they're in this, like, subdivision, this new subdivision that's being built, because I can't remember any other time off the top of my head that I've seen that as a setting in the movie. And then there's that, too, like, you know, all the settings of the movie. You got the subdivision, which is pretty fun. You go down to the cemetery looks great. All the set pieces, down to, like, that river, the tunnel, and everything. They make it to this hospital. The hospital scenes are great. You got the upstairs, downstairs, making it to, like, that manufacturing company or whatever, that electrical company, to take them down at the end. The chase in the semi-truck, just, I love it all. And don't get me wrong, I think the idea of the beef brains is kind of out there and kind of dumb, and the way of killing the zombies is a little ridiculous, but I do like the idea that you can kill the zombies, because that is something in a way that holds back part one. Granted, it gives it like an impending feeling of doom the entire time, part one. It is nice to have a way to kill these zombies in part two. And on a side note, I did a commentary on Return of the Living Dead part one with my buddy Goraphobe a couple weekends ago, and we were saying with that first body, when they burned it up, they should just cut it into more pieces and just buried it under the ground and throw it back in the tub or whatever, but I digress. And something I'll throw out there too that gets a lot of hate in this movie: Tarman in this movie. I think Tarman looks great. I love how Tarman looks in this movie. He looks scary as fuck. He looks huge. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, maybe he should have been included a little bit longer, but it is what it is, you know what I mean? But this is just a really fun movie. I like how they go from set piece to set piece. Jesse gets locked into the little, what do you call it? The little tomb at the cemetery or whatever, the mortuary. Not that, it's like, you guys know what I'm talking about. And that's where he meets Tom Matthews and James Cairn. And then they eventually make it back to the subdivision. They go over to the doctor's house that lives in the neighborhood because he's got this car to get out of town. And then they go from house to house, which you have some funny gags in there with the zombies dancing around to the aerobics. Even a scary scene where the zombie punches through one of the glass windows and grabs Jesse by the head. But then, you know, you move over to the doctor's house. They get his car. What does he call it? Baby? Nobody drives Baby but me. And then Tom drives it straight through the garage. And then, you know, they go to their grandparents' house to get guns, then to the hospital, they try to escape town, then to the factory. So the movie's going. That's another thing that's good for it, because you got 3 different groups of people, pretty much. Jesse and the kids, the teens, and the adults. And they all end up meeting together back at the house, and then boom, from set piece to set piece to set piece in a 90-minute movie, flowing like crazy. And then I know it's not the goriest movie, but I have an argument that I don't think part one is the goriest movie. You know, I've seen, this is coming from a guy who loves some really gory shit. You know, part one, you got the bite in the head, 2 different bites in the head. Yeah, that's really the goriest parts. I mean, there's some pretty nasty shit when the mom's getting her head eaten outside by the zombies. There's a really good effect in here where the zombie upstairs in the hospital gets shot with a shotgun and his body's in half and he's crawling around. You know, I even like the Michael Jackson zombie, which, fun fact, that was played by Brian Peck, who also played one of the workers in part 3 that gets killed by the homeless zombie. So he's the only one to be in part 3. But as much as I liked him in part 1, fuck that dude, because he did some pretty shitty things in real life. But I digress. We're talking movies, and I'm rambling on here, you know. And so I just think this is a very fun movie. It's not meant to be nothing less, nothing more. Good characters, good settings, and maybe it's just that people don't find this movie funny, but I find it hilarious. I laugh my ass off every time. It's a comfort movie to me, really. And the pacing goes along real fast. I mean, shoot, get the dang screwdriver out of my head. How can I forget about that? You know, and then the ending isn't the best, but it's not bad at all, you know. You got Jesse finally standing up to his bully, shoves the screwdriver in his mouth. Was it a screwdriver? Because if that was a screwdriver, that's funny, because they put the screwdriver in the zombie's head too. But he goes, "That's why you're dead. No brains and a big mouth." So I love it, man. I love Dr. Mendel and everything. Just a really fun movie. Happy ending. Just fun. And I think it's kind of a situation where you hold the first one so high that it's hard to like the next one. I mean, there's plenty of movies that I love that have a sequel where it's like, it's just not the same. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, like through time, I ended up kind of liking Beetlejuice, for example. I hated it when I first watched it. I watched it, it kind of grew on me, but it's like, the reason everyone hated that movie is because it's not part 1. It can't be part 1. Return of the Living Dead part 2 can't be the same as part 1. A lot of people want to connect the dots with the characters. You can. Everyone's dead. They killed everyone. I could see maybe starting up in the same town, but and rebuilding. But who says it even wasn't? Did they name the location? Because they're in a new subdivision that's getting built. I mean, Clu Gallagher has the same last name as Jesse in the movie, so they connect that they might be related and everything when he calls the army. He calls the army, all right. But I don't know. That's me rambling on. I love this movie. And with that being said, I got a couple things I want to show you guys too. I was going to, normally when I mention the movie, I'll hold the title up, which I didn't even do that, which this has a really great, I love the reversible art on here. Scream Factory. I would like to see this in 4K. And I'm a big fan of the artwork that Scream Factory was doing back then. And okay, so that's the blue, and this is actually a German media book that I bought at Motor City Nightmares from the owner of Static Tape Videos. So Return of the Living Dead Part 2, I'm actually going to open this up right now. I was debating on keeping it sealed as like a collector's item or whatever. But I was curious if the original soundtrack was on this, because the soundtrack in the theater, VHS, and DVD, I guess, are different than the Blu-ray. I don't quite remember. It's been so long since I've seen like the VHS. Take a look at this artwork. Oh, you don't say. That is cool. Look at that. Don't mind that noise. I live right behind a high school. Hey, shut the fuck up over there. I'm trying to talk about zombies. Okay, so the media book. I think this is the only media book I own. So, boom. Boom. Let's open this up. This isn't really doing it justice, but I like the idea of media books. It's kind of funny these never caught on in America, but that is really badass artwork. And while I'm at it, I'm going to show you guys something else. I was going to make an entire video of this, and I never got around to doing it, but I picked up the Return of the Living Dead Part 2 soundtrack through TerraVision. Look at that. It's like a lenticular artwork. Doesn't really show up too well on camera. You can kind of see that it moves. To be quite honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this artwork. I would have liked just a regular... It's kind of hard on the eyes when you're looking directly at it, like looking into the sun. Which I used to do that as a kid a lot. That's why I'm making videos like this now. But there's the back. Which this is a great soundtrack. I know I told the story before. I got kind of like a movie room, kind of man cave-ish thing in my basement, at least area. Half of it is kind of that way. I'm still kind of building it. But I went to wrap all my Christmas presents down there, and I listened to this entire vinyl while I was wrapping Christmas presents. I thought, what kind of lunatic does that? But check this out. Ba-boom! So that's pretty cool, which, on top of the fact, this is a really, really good soundtrack. Now, whoop. I guess only Michigan people or Midwestern people do that. Whoop, whoop. So, it's pretty cool right there. This is only the score, but the music soundtrack is fucking killer as well. Boom, Return of the Living Dead. I did always think this zombie looked really weird. They got the crowbar on the head, just because his head looks so small compared to his body. But that's how my mind works. And then we have the vinyl itself. I really wish I would have known about this release in time to get that big, super awesome combo pack with all like the mugs and glasses and t-shirts and everything. But I did not. I missed out. But that is that. So there's a couple collectibles from Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing that, and I want to hear your guys' opinion on Return of the Living Dead Part 2. It's been 17 minutes I'm still talking about this movie. I love this movie. I know I could be completely biased because it holds a special place in my heart since I was a kid. But overall, I think I made a good case for it being a pretty badass horror movie. It doesn't get talked about enough, and I absolutely love it. So let me know in the comments below what you think about Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And what's your favorite movie in the series? Return of the Living Dead Part 3 is also a very badass movie. I love all three of those. But yes, I love Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And hopefully if you're not a big fan of it, I might have made you a bigger fan or make you want to rethink it or give it a second chance. You should pop this movie in today if you got it. But anyways, I need to finish getting ready for the show. I'm about to hit the old road. Hit the old dusty roads, baby. But yeah, hopefully I see you guys on the stream. I'll be going live in a couple hours from now. Not sure when. Probably around 2 o'clock. So anyways, Blood Guts Gore. I'll check you guys next time.